Looks like we are live on Facebook as well. Welcome, everyone. So, today's topic, we are going to dive into fun with failure and how you can actually be happy even if you're going through challenges where you might not be performing at your best, and how you can shift that perspective. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about how this can be possibly connected to trauma, how to identify those things, and then how to move through it so that you can get to a happier place. So, if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tina and I am a happiness coach, and I help business owners deal with the emotional roller coaster of running a business. So I do these lives and I pick the topics and I go through the trainings and I share from my own personal experiences in hopes that you will be able to take something from it and actually apply it to your own life, whether that's on the personal side or the professional side. And I often will use a trauma informed approach based on things that I actually use, things that I actually do to help me with the things that I've experienced in life that were traumatic. This is not a situation of um, using those as excuses of these things happen to me and therefore I can't do those things. It's like, no, these things happen to me and I'm going to find a way to turn that into a positive. And I do that on a regular basis, and I share that with the people that come to the lives. And I also implement a change management strategy that I use in corporate. And so you'll hear me talk a lot about business terms and stuff like that that I've used in, and I'll give you real live work examples that I've used in my transportation and logistics career. So, enough about me. Let's get to the topic. So, have you dealt with failures or problems and challenges where things are not going right, and there's mistakes that are happening, and it seems like the more that you try to fix those mistakes, the worse they get, the more problems that come out of it, and you just really start feeling overwhelmed by a lot of these things. Excuse me. Um, so the first thing that I want to touch on is um, when you're dealing with failure and you're dealing with somebody else's failure. Maybe somebody on your team didn't do something, maybe somebody else made a mistake, and it's something that you have to correct, you have to fix, and there's all kinds of challenges. How do you actually deal with those kind of things, and how you approach those situations often has to do with how we treat ourselves, with how we treat ourselves when we've made mistakes. And that is usually some sort of conditioning that we have had either from our childhood or previous work experiences, something like that, something from the past. So this is why it's important to do the inner work, not so that we can dwell in the past, but be able to recognize and identify the situations and what contributed to the ways that react, and how we react to certain things. So for myself, I often, if mistakes were made, I often got very defensive. I got very self-critical. I would beat myself up, and then people would end up having to deal with my emotions, and um, that would cause some discomfort in the workplace, discomfort at home. All these kind of things can come up from it, right? So being able to identify where that came from and how that is connected is really important when you do that inner work. And I know some of mine comes from some of my childhood experiences that I had that were not great. And when you make those connections, you're able to figure out, oh, okay, this is coming from here. And when I was a child, I made these decisions about that situation, and now I can make different decisions. So the problem is when we make decisions as a child, we don't have the cognitive ability to be able to make a decision based on logic, based on facts. We tend to take things personally. And that's just a normal thing. You don't even need anything traumatic to happen to you. Kids will do that. They will see mom and dad are tense or upset about something, maybe they're not even fighting, but they're tense and upset, and maybe the kid will make a decision going, well, I shouldn't do this because it makes mom upset, or I shouldn't do that because it makes dad upset. So we make these decisions, they become part of our hard coding. And whether we have, if we have had a traumatic experience, then and we weren't able to successfully overcome that, then we usually develop an intolerance for that kind of situation. So it's on this side here where we have an intolerance. So for example, say, there's so many examples I could bring. Okay, so let me just think of one. So for myself, I know being lied to and emotional outbursts tend to be pretty triggering for me. And I have a very low tolerance for that kind of drama because it reminds me so much of the childhood that I grew up in. For example, back in the day, Jerry Springer was all the rage. Everybody loved that show. And I absolutely could not stand that show because that was too much like my childhood, right? There was always some sort of drama, people delighting in the misery of others. And I have a very low tolerance and low threshold for those kind of things because I wasn't able to successfully overcome that in childhood. Now, that doesn't mean I can't have, I have a zero tolerance policy. I just know that I'm much more easily affected by it. And so it means I have to take certain situations and I have to be aware of my own personal responses because of the situations that I've been through. Now, if you have successfully overcome that and you came out on top, you came out as the victor, then you are going to have a much more compassionate viewpoint. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. A little bit better. Okay, so you can have a much more compassionate. So we've got love, we've got fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real, and then we've got love, and I don't normally have a saying for it, but I just made this one up. So we have laughter, we have oneness, connectedness, victory, and everyone. So it is something that when we are in that state of love, we can see things with a much more compassionate viewpoint. We have a whole lot more tolerance. We have patience. We have understanding. We are just all around happier when we're operating from that energy, right? And so what we have to do is, when we're dealing with failures, and this happens at work, if you find that you're getting short-tempered, you're getting irritated, you're becoming unreasonable about things, you're getting very rigid about things, then I can promise you, you've probably got some pain that's leading you towards the intolerant side. And when you start to uncover, where is this coming from? Why am I being so aggressive about this? Why am I being so adamant that things have to be this way, right? So when we look at those rigid structures, usually those are protection mechanisms that we are using to cope. And so when we figure out what is the pain that's underneath that, then it allows us to shift that intolerance a little bit more to the side of compassion and understanding and love. And so this is really important for us to start to do this with ourselves first. And so I know for me, a big part of my healing journey and recovery was learning to not be so critical of myself, even when I make mistakes. So today, of course, I had a situation where I had a whole bunch of mistakes that ended up starting off my day, and it was very reminiscent of how I used to operate on a regular basis. And I was like, oh geez, this was my normal life in 9 to 5. I was always running on empty. I was exhausted. I was tired. I had so many things on the go. I felt overwhelmed. I felt all of these anxious feelings. And it's only through being able to do some of that inner work and realize, okay, this is coming from this place. I know what's going on here. And what had happened was, it's like I wasn't getting enough sleep, and I had been doing this for a little while, and I'm like, oh, here's a repeated pattern. I've been doing this for a bit, and I saw the repeated pattern, and I was able to identify, oh, okay, this is what's going on because I've done this inner work. And I was like, okay, this is a day where you're going to need to be quiet, because after I had opened my mouth, have you ever had that where you are at work, you go, you're like, you've had enough, you lost it, you're like, I have no more tolerance on this, so you're down on this end of the scale, which is on the fear side, and you just like, you know what, that's it, I've had enough, I'm going to send this email, and you finally blast somebody for something, and sure enough, that is the one time that you should not have blasted them, because maybe you read one detail incorrect, maybe you thought it was something else, or you thought they were talking about something else. Have you ever done that, where you lost your shit on somebody because you thought they were talking about point A and they're really talking about point B, and you're like, oh, that has nothing to do with it, and you realize that you made a mistake. So number one thing that you do when you do make those mistakes, it's very important for you to vocalize that apology. It is also important to change the behavior, but it is important. For me, one of the biggest things that really helped me with being able to ensure that I change my behavior is every time I caught myself making those mistakes, I would go back and I would apologize. I would acknowledge what I had done wrong and what I was going to do differently. And so the more I did that, because it's painful to do that. Nobody likes to have to go and, say, hey, I messed this up, I screwed this up, I had a failure, right? And so by actually being the first to acknowledge it, being the first to identify it, take accountability, own it, and shift it, then you are able to change this. And it also makes you remember, because of that pain, you remember the next time you're in that situation, you don't want to have to go back and you don't want to have to apologize again. So it's setting yourself up to make it easier to do the right thing the first time, right? So so that's what I would start doing, is every time, even if it was awkward, even if it was weird, even if it was 2 weeks later, a month later, whatever it was, I would do that thing to ensure I would not do that again, because I didn't like to have to do that. I didn't like to have to go back and say, hey, I messed all these things up. But I was also the first one to come running when I made those mistakes, so that I could take ownership. And I find the only time that I'm hesitant at doing that, it's because I don't believe that I can get to the solution, that I don't believe that I can improve, that I can't see far enough down the road to see that this is just going to be a temporary bump. So being able to expand our vision, being able to look further down the road, allows us to be able to look at the situation that we're in. It's easy to take accountability for it, right? But when we are too focused on how big this problem is right now, then we fall into those traps of beating up on ourselves, being hard on ourselves. And when we are doing that, I can promise you, you're going to start to treat other people like that. And now, not only do you have a problem, but you also become the problem. So we don't want to do those kind of things. So this is why it's really, really important for us to do the inner work for ourselves, being able to identify where we've been harmed, because how we've been harmed in the past, how we've been hurt in the past, is going to dictate where we are on our intolerance or compassion scale on any given situation. Okay? And oftentimes with abusive situations or problematic situations, if you can't beat them, you end up joining them. So depending on your experience, maybe you had somebody that played mind games with you, and that was always leaving you with this sense of feeling like you're off balance. And excuse me, if you if you were successful at being able to overcome those mind games and being able to deal with the situation, and maybe you were able to trick your abuser back, right, or play games back with them, then that is going to be something that you have a much more compassionate view of somebody that plays games, right? But if you weren't so successful and you were really wounded by it, then you're going to be not so compassionate with somebody that plays games. You're going to be very intolerant of those kind of things. So I have a real issue with people who lie and stuff like that. And I'm not talking like the little lies. It's like, does this dress make me look fat kind of lie. It's like, no, you look beautiful, right? Now, there's truth, but you also don't want to be brutal in your truth just for the sake of being brutal, right? I do believe in radical candor, but I also believe in don't speak curses over people as well, right? Have enough emotional intelligence to know that we don't always have all the answers. And even if I don't see something as good or not good, I see a value in the person that is right in front of me, right? So always err on the side of caution and err on the side of compassion, right? So always leaning towards those kind of things, it's going to yield you better results. So let's talk about fun with failures, and then some of the things that we can start to do when we're looking. Okay, so the first step is when we have a failure, when we have something that has not gone as planned. There we go, on Facebook, there we go. I really need to see, that was one of the things that ended up happening today is I was going through some of my videos, and I'm like, I'm really laughing at myself because I'm still fairly new to doing these videos. I'm not super tech savvy when it comes to cameras and stuff like that. And I was looking at some of my videos, and before I would have beat myself up and been really super critical of myself, saying, hey, you know what, you've made all of these mistakes. Because when you go back and you look at it, you're like, oh man, oh, it's cringe. There's all kinds of cringe, right? And I'm aware that there's cringy things that I'm doing. There was one video where my camera fell, and so it was looking up at the ceiling, and I'm like, that's how it started off. And I'm like, oh, lame. So I could look at that stuff, and now, instead of getting upset, being super critical of myself and beating myself up, I looked at it and I started to laugh, and I'm like, that is going to be an amazing blooper reel for later when I'm trying to convince people that I haven't always been this good, right? Because every successful person always says, this didn't happen overnight, guys. I had to work at this. This was hard. I had to do these things. And you're like, yeah, but it was you. You were amazing. You're this, you're that. All the successful people have that, and they never really document enough of the journey of when they're making a lot of mistakes and they're failing more times than they're succeeding, right? And so I'm like, hey, I've got this journey is being documented. So all of my fails, all of my flops and everything, I can laugh at that, and I have the ability to laugh at that because I have a far enough vision that I know that I'm going to get to the destination. I know I'm going to get to the point where I'm successful, where I am really, really good at, and I don't have any of these technical issues. I might have other problems, but I won't have these ones, right? And that is something that we all have, right? You want to be able to look back on whatever it is that you're doing today and laugh at your novice side, your unskilled side, right? Whatever that may be, right? So maybe it could be your artwork or something. Like, I'm sure, like, some of these ones, I'm like, hey, that one's really, really cool, and I really liked how that one turned out. And I'm sure I'm going to look back at that and go, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that was good, right? that's what I hope for, because that tells me that I've grown, I've improved, I've been able to do better. And if you have this growth mindset, you have the ability to know that even if you suck right now, you're the law of averages is going to tell you you will get better. You keep putting in enough reps, and you do step number one: feedback and data collection. We want to be able to pull feedback and understand why did the failure happen? What went wrong? Why are we here? Why is this the very first time we failed at this? Or is this the 125th time that we failed at it? Maybe it's something like losing your temper. It's like, man, I lost my temper again, or man, I was late again, or really taking a look at looking at the feedback. Why was that? Why? And it's not just the systematic stuff, it is the inner work, the emotional stuff, especially if stuff you made a mistake, you screwed something up, you took accountability, you realized, oh, okay, I need to change this, right? But then it happens, or you do that for a little while, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens again. Those kind of things, that is not because you don't understand the process. That is not because you don't understand what not to do or what to do. It is more of an emotional thing, and being able to do the inner work to really dig out that root cause of what's going on there allows you to be able to make lasting changes. Now, even doing this stuff doesn't mean it's foolproof. It's like, oh, I figured out the root cause, I'm never going to have this issue again. No, we're humans. Of course, we're going to have these issues. But it's like driving, right? You don't make radical corrections. You make gentle corrections. Otherwise, you'd be an erratic driver on the road, right? Whipping back and forth, going, oh, I went too far to the left. Now I got to swing too far to the right. And like you end up zigzagging. You get pulled over and you get your license taken away, right? If you keep doing that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing with our life as we're driving ourselves through life, and we're negotiating this emotional roadmap, right? Of being able to understand where we're going, what's causing those kind of things, where did we come from, and where are we going to, and having clear understanding of those helps guide us in our journey, right? And so the first one is we want to gather as much feedback and data as possible, understanding all the pieces of what happened, why it happened, who contributed to the failure, who was aware, who wasn't aware, who do we need to educate, who do we need to pull in to help solve the problem, all of those kind of things, and then how are we going to do it differently for next time, right? And that leads us to analytics and KPIs. So we need to look at the analytics, really understanding the information that's coming in. Are we looking at it from the correct perspective? Are we measuring the right things that are actually valuable KPIs? Do we need to change how we're measuring things? Do we have to change how we're receiving the data? Are we able to get enough information back in a timely manner so that we can make better decisions more rapidly? Really understanding that. And that's even with our own personal stuff as well, is like, okay, what's going on? Why did I have this failure? Why did I make that mistake? Okay, I was stressed out about something that was going on with the kids, or the fight that I had with my spouse the night before, or I'm really nervous about this upcoming deal that we're working on. Whatever it is, really being able to understand where was the emotional breakdown, and what led to those kind of things. Maybe it was you didn't get enough sleep the night before. It was you aren't eating properly, or you're eating too much, too little. You are feeling disconnected. You don't feel like you have the support. You feel like you have too much that has to be done and not enough time. That's a normal thing for most business owners, right? There's always too much to do and not enough time. And the more we get stressed about things, the the more we slip into fear, the more likely we're able to react badly. So not paying attention to the early warning signs as well often leads us down a path that we have a bigger mess to clean up because we've reacted badly to a situation. And so we want to be aware of this as much as possible so that we can mitigate the challenges that come up. So there's always going to be failures in a business, there's always going to be challenges, and being able to analyze and collect the correct data and then be able to identify how do we get quicker feedback and how do we get that information in a way that actually gives us a clearer snapshot of what we need to look at. And then third one is we have to go through process improvement. So we're going to have some strategic targeting. We want to be able to really identify what is the actual problem that we're trying to solve and where is it on the priority. Are we solving the most important problem first, or are we focusing on the easier ones? And sometimes we do need to focus on the easier ones because there weren't enough, maybe we don't have the resources, maybe we have to wait for something before we can solve the true problem. So we may have to work on some of the smaller problems first and then build up to the higher ones, right? So I've had that many times in work environment where we knew we had to get pricing between two companies that were merging. We were same customers, all that kind of stuff, bringing them together, trying to get the pricing aligned. But so we knew that's what needed to be done. We knew that would solve the problem. However, we had two different systems, two different platforms, and being able to clean the data to get those two to work together. And also, not only just the systems, but getting the two teams that are from the different companies to collaborate, to work in unison rather than against each other, or, well, this is the way we do it and this is the way we do it. So being able to bring two companies together is a huge undertaking and big part of change management, right? So having a strategic targeting plan of what are the problems that we are actually going to work on. Is this the most important one? Where is it on the priority list of being able to deal with those kind of things? Then we also have to go into planning. How are we going to do this? What is the plan to be able to solve the problem? What are the emotional challenges and resistances that we're going to have with solving this problem? What are the expectations of once we solve it, what's going to happen? And then, of course, there's the execution and being able to understand who is clearly responsible for what. And being able to ensure that everybody knows their roles, that they have the tools and they have the support they need to be able to do those kind of things. So this includes ourselves. So when we're taking this kind of approach and doing our own inner work, what kind of support do we have? What am I responsible for? How am I going to change these kind of things? What is it that I need to do differently? And being able to really clearly identify, and how will I know that I'm actually making progress? How am I going to measure that? How am I going to determine, am I getting better or am I getting worse? Right? And maybe it's okay, or maybe it's like, okay, generally I have good measurements, good KPIs and everything, but then I had this one bad month. Does that mean that you should just close up shop and not continue with business? No, you have to continue correcting and adjusting and being able to do it. It's like, oh, this happened again. It's like 30 years in transport and logistics. I can tell you your on-time performance and your on-time to pickup, your on-time to delivery, all of that kind of stuff is going to fluctuate, and there's going to be all kinds of reasons why, and it's just a matter of being able to tighten those things in and being able to have a benchmark of where is an acceptable level, and then how can you improve that? What can we do to increase the likelihood of success, right? So when we are looking at failures, it's not whether or not, it's not a binary thing. It's like, okay, I failed again, but did I do better than last time? Where do I need to adjust? When we are looking at things from a perspective of that it is inevitable. We are 100% assured that we will reach our goal. We know that this is possible, that we can do this, and cultivating that belief within ourselves and having compassion for ourselves along the way as we're going through this journey, whether that's our healing journey or our business, and know that there's going to be more challenges that come up, and it's okay. You're probably going to make the same mistake again. And one of the challenges I always used to have is I used to beat myself up mercilessly, because it's like, oh, you should know better. You've done this wrong. You should know better. I can't believe you messed it up. And that was all like programming tapes, whatever, of messages I heard throughout my childhood, right? When is the rest going to be good enough? When are the other, I got 100% math and French in grade 5, and I got told, when are the others going to be 100%? And they were high marks as well. They were A's and B's, right? Like, and so to me, anything less than an 80 was a failure. And those are all things that were imprinted in my mind. And those aren't necessarily bad if we are choosing to operate that way. However, if we're doing it because we don't feel like we have any control, or we feel that we're not going to be good enough, or we feel that people aren't going to like us, they're not going to respect us, they're not going to whatever, then that is a trauma response, and that is not something that you want to operate in, because you have no control over that. So being able to take back our control and be able to actually deliberately choose how we're operating and being able to follow through with that is a sign of healing. So me today, when I made these mistakes, I lost my temper, and it was not even close to, like, it's not like I was yelling or screaming. I just felt tense, and I got a little bit terse, and I also didn't check the facts, and I argued about something that it was the wrong thing, and I was like, oh, of course. I couldn't just let it be. No, I went down that road again. I made the same mistake, but I did it a lot better, and I laughed at myself when I saw that I made that mistake. So it's like, oh, okay, these don't have to be catastrophic, end of life kind of things, right, that I used to feel. And that was because I was being highly critical of myself. And when you learn to have that love and compassion for yourself and give yourself some of the things that you didn't receive, you learn to do that healing inner work of some of the ways that you've been treated in the past. It starts shifting you from being extremely intolerant about whatever it is that you have the issue with, and it allows you to shift into something that is much more loving, compassionate, and happy. So yeah, that is the training for today. Hey, Sarmad, welcome. If you are just joining in and you're like, oh, wait, I didn't catch the topic. The topic today was fun with failure and how to overcome things that you've dealt with, how to shift your perspective with failures, and how to shift it from intolerance to compassion. And so if this is your first time joining me, go to my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125, click on the subscribe button, and you will get notified, oh my goodness, get notified when I upload the YouTube video. And this is just, look at this video. I'm going to have way more blooper things of when I've been doing this for 5 years or 10 years, and I look back and go, oh man, I can't believe that's where I started, guys. So you guys saw it here first, and I've gotten a lot better since when I started back in December. So this is good, and some days it's a little bit shaky, but that's okay. It is still moving along, and so hopefully you guys got something out of this today, and go to the YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125, click subscribe. You'll get notified when I've uploaded the replay, and there's over 100 videos on there that you can start watching, and you can take away some of my experience, strength, and hope, apply it to your life, and hopefully you get something really good about it. And I would love to hear if something I said helped you. Okay? So guys, with that, we're going to wrap it up tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.